I'm Shalina Tobin, aka Posh Nosh Gal. Today I'm joined by the fabulous chef Adam Byatt. Essex born, Adam's love of the kitchen was instilled in him by two generations of chefs in the family. And after a career that's seen him grace the likes of Claridge's and the Berkeley, he now runs the wonderful Michelin-starred Trinity restaurant in South London. Hi Adam, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, very good, thank you. Nice, thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for joining us. So, how have you been doing during lockdown? What's been happening?
Yeah, it's an interesting time for everybody. I think we'll all sort of come out of this with our own stories and our own experiences. I think, but I think the best way to describe it for me is almost in three parts. Really, the beginning part was when I had to close the restaurants like that and in such a sudden form. There was a couple of weeks where it felt very strange, a big mixture of sort of angry and unsure and nervous and trying to fix up all the finances of the business and shore the business up and make sure the staff were in in good hands. So very, very strange beginning part. But after a couple of weeks, I sort of settled into it and just thought, well, you know what? We can't change it. So let's just try and enjoy this moment. And that was kind of around Easter time. And cooked loads with the family and did lots of bits and pieces. And it's a very unsure time, though. And then we're very fortunate enough to be able to go. And I decided, actually, this is going to go on for a long time. So let's just go. Let's try and get away. So slightly controversially, we ended up going to a place in the country and spending 7 or 8 weeks in the middle of the woods. We're on our own, isolated, and we had a new puppy, so that was great. And we just spent some time on our own in the country, and actually it was really lovely. We had a wonderful time. We cooked loads together. We had some brilliant time as a family together. And I will really look back on that as a special time that we couldn't have done any other way. That was, probably not going to happen again like that. And it was great, actually. And then the third element, of course, of this whole journey is this end of it, which I have to say has been less fun. That sort of unknown about the opening of the restaurant, how that's going to work, watching other people open up and feeling unsure about that, but having to make my own decisions about my own company and all of this as well, and my team and my family. And this bit's been very tough, I'll be honest. But you know what? There's been more highlights than lowlights, actually. And obviously, there is the black cloud of the fact that the business isn't trading, and we've had 4 months of no business like that. That is a huge black cloud in all of this. But as a chef, I've been cooking for 32 years. I've never had this much time with my family and at home, and to look after myself. To cook like this and to be at home, it's been lovely, actually, and I'd like to look back on it in a positive way.
Amazing. So it's really nice to hear that you found the silver lining, actually, amongst all of this.
Well, a temporary one, I think, a temporary one. It certainly didn't feel like a holiday.
Yeah.
I feel like I need a holiday now, weirdly enough. It feels quite strange in that way. And yeah, not all positive, but in the main, I think it's been a great time. We've had a great time together and learned loads, cooked loads, had time to care for each other and ourselves, and yeah, it's been great.
And you finally got your opening date, the 4th of August. Are you
Yes.
ready? Are you ready for it?
Yes, that's right. Thank you. We I finally launched that on Instagram last night, and
I saw that.
Yeah, thanks. We spent a couple of weeks planning and plotting together as a team and trying to come up with what is the best thing to do, when's the best time to do it. And you know what? There really isn't a golden key here. There really isn't an answer that suits everybody.
Yeah.
And in the end, I just thought, actually, I'm either going to delete the whole of August and go away and do it in September, or I'm just going to get on with it. And my team are really keen to get on with it. And there's a window where they are absolutely gagging to do this. They have all the energy, all the passion to get on and do this and do it well. And I sort of have to capitalize on that window in their emotional state as well. And if
Yeah.
I let this go on too long, there's going to become a point where that might wear out. September might be too far away, and I think I just have to sort of do it really. So we're good to go.
And have you been able to retain most of your staff over the period?
Yeah, I have. When I started this out, when at the very beginning of it, I said to my team, my senior team, and my business partner, I said, look, the only thing that matters in this to me is that at the other end of this, whenever that is, because we just didn't know when that would be, is that the team are all retained and the business is in great shape, and that we can just come back to some form of normality. Those are the only overriding, serious, important factors. And we have managed to come back with a business that is still there and has paid every supplier down to zero. It's up to date on all its rent payments, and it's in okay shape. And every single member of staff that finished with us on the 20th of March, other than those that were naturally going to fall away anyway and go home or leave in that period of time, or weren't going to be coming back with us, everyone else is coming back. Yeah, and we are opening up with everybody off of furlough from the 4th of August. Yeah.
Amazing. That's brilliant to hear. And so you also converted Union Bistro into a shop. Will that return into a full restaurant again, or do you think you'll keep the shop element there as well?
Yeah, the shop was a really interesting thing. I did it partly because I didn't want to just stop trading. I wanted something for the team to sort of migrate into this period from. And it felt right to try and serve the community at that time. There were a lot of vulnerable, a lot of scared people. We also had huge amounts of stock because the end date was like really instant. So sat on loads of food. So we traded for 3 or 4 weeks, traded out all that stock, delivered hundreds of food to people locally, which I think they were really appreciative of. Kept the team just immersed in a little bit in it. And kept us there. But in the end, actually, it made more sense to have everybody on furlough, off and closed. The restaurant will open back up as a restaurant, just purely as a restaurant. The whole shop thing went. But you know what? The shop was very popular. And I did toy with an idea of opening the whole of Trinity up into a shop as well. I really was but then we went to the woods and stayed in the woods. So we didn't do it again.
Yeah, you thought you'd just take that time out, because you'll never get this time again. So I think it's quite nice to just take that time out, go out with your family, and just focus on them 100% and give them the time they've never done before. Absolutely,
there was very little money to be had in it. The driver wouldn't have been financial. It would have been all about all the team would have been unfurloughed, and we would have kind of broken even. And I thought, actually, you know what? It's better the team are furloughed, and I enjoy this time, because I've never had a sabbatical. I probably never will, and this is essentially a version of that. So
yeah, absolutely. So let's move away from the whole situation. I wanted to talk to you about your childhood, actually. Tell us what it was like growing up as a child with a professional chef as a mother.
Okay, so Mum was a chef before she had me for 4 years or so. Did her professional training, worked in a corporate environment as a chef, but it was quite short-lived, because once she'd had me, she then gave up work. So, but the training and the sort of influence as a chef was definitely in there. My grandfather, who I never really met actually, was a chef in the army. So I guess it was sort of in there. Food at home. This is food at home for me, because of how old I am. It was just as supermarkets were beginning to emerge. So most of my childhood was all about shopping in the local greengrocers, the local butchers, the local fishmongers. That was real. That was how it was. Mm-hmm. Milk was delivered, and the cookery all came from that. So we ate very good home meals, all cooked at home. But then in my sort of early teen years, that was that supermarket boom era, and all of a sudden, ready meals and not ready meals, but more prepared things like pastry, and you could buy pastry, you could buy yogurt, you could buy cereals, you could buy, and all of that kind of stuff suddenly became to the fore, and my mum embraced that. She went in with both feet, and so we ate a lot of that kind of stuff during my teen years. But she still cooked great food at home, and home cooking was a very important thing. I don't think food at home with me growing up was anything like my children's experience of food at home. We're quite principled at home. We cook everything at home. It's a big part of our lifestyle, not because we're trying to be heroic in any way. It just is our lifestyle. That's the way the restaurants, the food, the suppliers, the food we use, we're immersed in that. And as a family, my restaurant, my business is all part of the family's lifestyle. So we're all very immersed in that side of it. So it was different to my childhood growing up, but Mum was a good cook. Yeah.
Right. And do your kids cook as well now? I mean, are they chefs?
Yeah, no, they're not chefs. My daughter's 12. She has so she's a little young for it, but she's super competent in the kitchen. And she's got that confidence, that natural, she's not fazed by a chopping board full of ingredients and turning that into something. And that's like really lovely to see. That's all I sort of wanted from it, really. Yeah. And my son is just like a champion eater. He loves food, loves to taste wine, loves food, loves to be involved in everything restaurant wise. And you know what, that's actually enough for me at the moment. What they choose to go on and do in their own lives, as long as they're happy, I really don't mind. And who knows where it might take them. They may well go that direction, but my daughter's a dab hand for sure. Yeah.
At 16, you managed to get an apprenticeship at Claridge's. How did that come about?
Yeah, it was a different era then, and obviously you can't really do that anymore. But I left school. Schooling wasn't great for me. Academically, it wasn't brilliant. The nurturing wasn't right. It didn't quite work for one reason or another. Mm-hmm. And there was a careers open day. I was very keen to just get out to work as soon as I possibly could. Really, I had lots of different jobs on the side. I worked with my dad. I had a milk round, a paper round, and washed cars, and did anything that was. I kind of liked working and earning money, I think. And then there was a careers open day that I went to when I was 15 that had the various different big institutional places that were advertising, or you could go to their stand and have a look at what they were offering. And the Savoy Education Trust that had Claridge's and the Connaught and the Berkeley and the Savoy Hotel under their tutelage were offering apprenticeship schemes. So cooking was something that I loved doing, but I didn't think I was going to be a chef. I didn't sort of every day wake up, at 12 and 13, put a chef's hat on, think, read cookbooks all day long. I just wasn't really like that. Food I saw food as a great way to do stuff, but I didn't really understand what it meant. Mm-hmm. And there was an apprenticeship scheme at Claridge's Hotel, which I took. And it was the making of me, to be honest. It was that's when my life changed. It was a huge milestone, huge turning point, and I'll be forever grateful for that. But it was a moment. It was more than just the apprenticeship. It was about leaving home, and because they very quickly signed me up to an apprenticeship scheme where I would go away to college and live in Bournemouth. So I wasn't even 16 then.
Right.
So I would go and live in Bournemouth on a campus and attend college on a full-time basis and do sort of block release at Claridge's and down in Bournemouth with the Royal Academy of Culinary Arts. So it was like an amazing, I'd gone from sort of pretty rubbish comp school, running around on my BMX outside and my skateboard to all of a sudden I was in Mayfair.
Yeah, the elite.
In this amazing hotel where the Queen was, and and there were 85 chefs, and I was number 86, and that was literally how it started. And it was overwhelming and a bit terrifying, but I embraced it. I really got involved, and then I left home literally a couple of weeks after my 16th birthday. I left home and went to live in Bournemouth, and that was pretty much it. I never went back again.
Right.
That was it. Yeah.
And would you recommend the apprenticeship approach to young budding chefs that want to get into the industry?
I would. It's kind of quite a split choice for a lot of people, but I know for sure that time I spent as an apprentice, partly at the college and partly at Claridge's, that is like a foundation in a house. It's like a foundation for me, as a head chef now, head chef or chef patron, whatever you want, I run 4 restaurants. I have 60 chefs that are all sort of looking towards me. I write 20 menus every 2 weeks. That's a lot of repertoire to draw from. And I know that if I didn't have that foundation and that underlying principle and understanding of classical French gastronomy, I would be in trouble at this point. Or my food would become very repetitive or very slimmed down as a repertoire. I probably wouldn't be able to cover the bases I cover. So for me, an apprenticeship and getting a fundamental understanding of classical French gastronomy is paramount. The only way I can explain it best is if my daughter did decide to do that, I would send her away to the school in Lyon in France, and she would learn to cook there. And that's what I think is the right way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you do support a lot of young people who want to come into the industry. So, I mean, you do talks at colleges as well, don't you?
Yeah, I've done quite a lot with Bournemouth College. Tend to try and work with them as much as I can and help mentor the young apprentices come through, because I understand the hardships they're going through and how tough things are.
Yeah.
But I've also gone full circle and taken on my own apprentices from the academy who have stayed with me at Trinity, and we've scholared them through that. But I think, listen, I think as someone, if you grow up and you have a success in this industry and you become, for want of a better term, in the industry leadership end of things, in the further end of the industry, you have a duty of care to give back to the industry, to make sure that what you leave behind is something that's still there 20, 30 years later. And that it is a place that people want to come into, are inspired to get involved with.
Yeah.
And it is an amazing industry, but it has a pretty bad rep for some reason. But I think that's starting to sort of fall away a little bit. And it is an incredible industry, and we should be promoting that more and more, and making sure that people feel engaged and excited by being involved in this industry. It's about to go through a huge amount of change in the next 5 years, but I think all of that will come out to be positive in terms of its inclusivity in bringing people into the industry, nurturing them and looking after them. So I think it's all good.
Right. And you also do a lot of charity work outside of, the apprenticeship as well. It's no such thing as too much.
No, there isn't. But my team and my wife might disagree with you, but I'm one of those people that if someone, I can't say no to anything, that's my problem. Now I have a load of people in place that do say no to stuff. Hence why I'm always late for meetings, you see. But again, listen, if this industry's given me so much, okay, I put in an awful lot of hard work and I've achieved a lot in it, but I'm in a position now where if I turn up at an event and that will sell tickets that will then generate money that will go on to support great causes, then what, come on, why shouldn't I do that? Yeah. I can't do one every day, but I tend to do 3 or 4 things every year. I support lots of different charities, yeah.
And which is the main charity that you support, that you're involved with?
Probably the breast cancer charity is the one I do the most for, because their events sort of suit me, and I know the people very well, and I tend to give them the time. I give them quite a lot, and I do stuff for the meningitis charity because that is quite close to me, and a couple of others, but the breast cancer charity in particular. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So moving back onto the work front, so you struck up a relationship with Phil Howard while you were at the Square in Mayfair. Was he a mentor for you?
I did actually. I did strike a relationship with him, and I still have a very good relationship with Phil. I guess you sort of start a job, and there is I didn't really know Phil at all in the beginning. But I did spend 4 years of my life at the Square, and it was an incredibly influential period of my life where I'd done that very classical training at Claridge's, very uniform, very regulated, very structured, very disciplined, and learning that French gastronomy. And all of a sudden I was in the Square, which was a modern British, totally up to date, rock and roll cookery. The kitchen was, a very different environment to that of Claridge's, but I sort of fell in love with it. And those two different kitchens were the perfect blend of bringing together and molding and ending up with me that I am now. I'm totally the sort of have ended up the product of those two amalgamated establishments, really. And when you start somewhere like that, Phil, I didn't know that well, but I just got him, and he respected who I was and what I was about, and we just went on to be quite good friends. And I really respect his values and the way he thinks about food, and the way, you know, that we have a very similar value about people and that kind of stuff, and that's what forms relationships ultimately. But actually what it comes down to is that we believe the same thing in food. You know, we value the same thing in food, and he is very much a mentor to me. But I don't sort of, you know, ring him every 10 minutes and ask him how to chop an onion. You know, we have a bit more of a grown-up relationship now. But certainly in the beginning, he's always supported me very well in the restaurants that I've opened and the choices that I've made. So.
Right. Well, you actually decided to set up on your own, which was a chain of juice bars. You started with that on your own. Why?
Okay, no, not quite. I started that with Phil, actually. Phil Howard and I and a few other gentlemen. They started a company that opened a fresh juice company. I was just a chef there, a chef director. But it was my first directorship role and my first sort of senior role. I'd done the Claridge's for 5 years. I'd then done the 4 years at the Square. I was still in my mid-20s. And you know what? I was a bit burnt and a bit sort of fatigued. And this role was different and interesting. And it felt great at the time to be involved with something that was quite progressive and quite different. This is back in the mid-90s. So it's a long time ago, very ahead of its time, actually. And we created a fantastic business doing these amazing smoothies and sandwiches and wraps and juices and cakes and all sorts of great stuff. And we opened 4 units in London, and we were supplying all these gyms and all sorts of stuff in the end. It was great. It's a fantastic experience for me. It was almost where like the business experience came in, but it certainly wasn't my company. It was Phil and lots of other people that owned it. But I was a small shareholder and a director in it. But yeah, that was it was a great experience. Great.
So what happened to it?
I think in the end, the tide turned against it, actually, for one reason or another, and it ended up closing.
Oh, it's a shame, because I mean now, juice bars are all over the place. They're a massive hit.
Yeah, I think doing that mid-90s, you could probably quite justifiably hinge that on just being too ahead of its time. Mm-hmm. And would people have paid the price that it would cost to juice that much fruit and pay for it in a glass? I don't know. Then now, yes, because we live differently now. But yeah.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong again, but Time was your first one?
That's correct.
Clapping. So that was a great success, though. So you won in Time Out the Restaurant of the Year and Tatler's Best Newcomer Award as well. But you left that pretty soon after and moved to Covent Garden.
So that is true. So I bought that that was my first restaurant after the juice thing. I thought I need to get back to cooking. I need to get back to not fine dining, but I need to cook again. And I want to own my own restaurant. I don't really want to go and work for someone else. I did actually. I went around London and I worked for different people, just doing what we call staging. So just sort of working for free in different restaurants. And, I just couldn't find what was right. And in the end, I just, I thought, no, I need to do this on my own. I need to own my own restaurant. So I bought a very small, rundown back street in Clapham. I found a little restaurant and I opened it, and it was called Time. And the truth of the matter is we didn't have we couldn't afford to buy main course plates. So we just did a whole selection of starter size dishes, and it went down a storm. And I loved the cooking there. It was some of the best cooking I've ever done in my life. I loved every minute of it, but it was hard and grueling, and we made very little money. But what we did do was get ourselves a bit of a platform, and we were reviewed brilliantly by every single person that was around at the time, Matthew Fort and Jan Moyer and that sort of era, Charles Campion, that, all that was the era of journalism that were reviewed twice by A. Gill, and Faye obviously came in. So it was very well reviewed. We won loads of awards. It was a brilliant restaurant. It was ahead of its time, but it was fun and dynamic, and it was one of those restaurants you discover and it took you back because you hadn't heard about it. But there was no social media, there was no journalism in those days. It was very different.
Right.
But after 4 years, actually, what happened was we were approached by the Hospital Club in Covent Garden to put the restaurant in there. That's the truth of that. And part of that deal was that we had to close time and move it into the hospital in Covent Garden. So that's what we did, unsuccessfully, but that's what we did.
Yeah, it's a shame because you were doing so well, and then just to kind of up and leave, and then it not doing so well after that. But then you picked yourself up, you dusted yourself off, and you started again. So
yeah, I think you learn. I think you learn as much out of those things that go wrong as you do out of the stuff that works. Actually, you learn more.
Yeah.
And having those experiences have really shaped me into who I am and taught me loads.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's all part of the journey. Actually, I would rather back someone like me who's had it a bit all over the place, but then found stability and then managed to make pretty serious money out of a restaurant and make it actually work, than I would someone who's never experienced any side of it. And restaurants are a little bit like that, especially when you're inside someone else's establishment. But the hospital was a great learning experience for me, and I was very young. You have to remember, we went from having 11 members of staff to 110, and turning over something like 14 grand a week to turning over 160 grand a week.
Wow.
And I was still 27 years old. So it was an experience, I have to say, and not one I would want to repeat very, very often, but it was a good experience. But eventually an amazing site come up in Clapham, a site that I'd always wanted, and I approached the landlord of that site, and ended up doing a deal with him, a joint venture deal with him, and 14 years later we still remain business partners and own Trinity and Upstairs and Bistro Union and all the other bits and pieces we have going around it, and now it's a very successful business due to that partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually a really lovely business. And I was wondering if you'd be having the live music upstairs when you open up again.
I don't think we're allowed to at the moment. I don't think we're allowed to, but we have put in an application to do something really amazing in the outside space in front of Trinity. There's a huge pedestrianised area that's beautiful, and we've put in an application to do something really quite magical out there, and I really hope we can do that in the summer, and just to bring back some vibe and some energy and some hospitality and a bit of real life normality to people, and do something great. So we've got all sorts of plans, but yeah.
Well, everyone's looking for that. Everyone just wants to, get back to it and enjoy themselves and, and be together in that kind of environment. So I think that would be so welcomed. And so you mentioned earlier on that you went out into the woods. I actually read somewhere that you like to hunt and fish. Did you get to do that when you went away?
I did. I did. I like my shooting and I like my fishing a lot. And actually, where I was able to go out every day and do that.
Brilliant.
And that for me is like, what it comes down to actually is I spend a very disproportionate amount of my life staring at stainless steel or white tiles, and just cooking and indoors. We don't see that much outside or that much daylight, and actually getting out into the woods, that overwhelming sense of freedom and looking up and seeing the sky and just walking in the woods with a little bit of freedom, for me is like that's the perfect escapism from all of this craziness that we do. And the fishing is a real bonus, and to go out and walk with the dog and shoot and fish is fantastic for me. So yeah.
So So I guess now when we finally get back to normal, are there any more restaurant plans in the future, or is it all just about rebuilding what you've got?
Interesting. Yeah. Right now, everything inside me just says, listen, this is survival mode. This is get back. I don't even know what I'm walking back into when we open the restaurants back in again, which is very unnerving. But let's say that, let's imagine that it goes okay and we manage to get open okay, and we have enough people to trade and you know, do okay as a business, and we manage to make it robust again.
Mm-hmm.
This has to be a time of opportunity as well. Has to be. And there's got to be great opportunities out there for businesses that are robust and know what they're doing, have a brilliant team. So I'm not turning down the opportunity to look at other things at the moment, because I think there could be some really exciting things on the horizon. You know, I have my work with Brown's Hotel, which takes up a lot of my time, and for that reason, I decided not to do anything for 1 year, and I've been working with Brown's for a year now. And that's sort of in a place where it's starting to settle. Well, it was starting to settle and gain traction and really get somewhere, that work I do with Brown's. But and so now I think let's get Trinity open, let's get it all bedded down, let's get everything settled, and then let's look at the opportunities that are out there, because I think post-COVID there could be some fantastic opportunities, and I'm quite excited by that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're actually coming to the end of our interview. There's just one last question that I've got for you, Adam. Tell me something about yourself that I couldn't possibly know.
I was a vegetarian for 4 years when I was a teenager.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
How'd you manage to cook?
I didn't cook. My mum cooked, but I was 4 years. I was a fully blown vegetarian for 4 years in my teenage years. Yeah. Part of my teenage rebellion, but you know what? Also, it was a chapter in my life that I can look back on and know that I could do that, and it was quite nice to live like that. And I do eat quite a lot of vegetarian food now, more so than I eat protein-driven food. So it's really nice, actually. Yeah.
And what made you then go back to eating meat again?
I started at Claridge's Hotel as an apprentice chef, and I didn't have either the stature or the height or the nerve to say, listen, I'm not going to taste that beef consommé because I'm a vegetarian. It wouldn't have gone down well, I don't think. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. And
that's my pleasure.
Guys, if you want to follow Adam on Instagram, he's at Adam Byatt, and I'm at Poshnosh Gal. Thanks, Adam. Take care.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.